I'm David Cardenas, and I'm going to interview Dudley Helmavig. He is a wrestling coach for Nome Belts. The interview took place on November 7th, and it was a Thursday. It was done after wrestling practice in the armory. I did this interview to find out more about my wrestling coach. I asked Dudley where he was born, and to my surprise, he was not born in Alaska. He was born in North Dakota, and he came up here for a honeymoon and drove nearly all the roads. He said he could not afford hunting unless he became an Alaska resident. You stay.
Uh, well, I always loved hunting, and I knew that there was no way I was ever going to be able to afford Alaskan hunting as a non-resident. So, residents, look at all the animals we have just here on the Seward Peninsula that we can hunt, none of which are found in North Dakota.
Dudley was actually a teacher for a really long time. 1994 to 1996 was his first go-round. He found out about wrestling from his friend who wrestled in a different school and taught him a few things. He became a wrestling coach because somebody convinced him a girls' flag football team, and that made him want to be a wrestling coach. What made you want to become a wrestling coach?
Well, my best friend's fiance in college talked my best friend and I into coaching a girls' flag football team, intramural program. She conned us, asked me first, and I said, I'll do it if George does it. And George says, I'll do it if Dudley does it. So then she had us. She was pretty cunning. She still is. So we coached the girls' flag football team, and we won the intramural championship, and that's what got me started to think about coaching.
He's been coaching wrestling in Alaska, and he also coached track and field and football. He wrestled as a kid in the middle of his 8th grade year because the school he had went to before did not have any sport. Dudley likes working with the kids during wrestling. 34 multiplied by 25 is roughly about how many people he coached. He's had a lot of good memories.
Sure. Emery Bouchou winning number 4 state titles. Leif Erikson being in the state finals 4 times. Troy Walker being one of our first state champs. Lots of good memories like that. James Horner upsetting Eakin in the state finals. Jeremy Luce winning state finals match and OW award. Those are all really neat things.
Dudley has wrestlers who come here to help him coach sometime. Did you always coach junior and junior high wrestling when you started coaching?
Not at the very first. We had separate practices, but the junior high was too small with too wide of variations in weight. We'd have some little guys like Michael Marvin, and then we'd have guys you remember Haley from 2 years ago? Walked on the mat as an 8th grader weighing 340 pounds. Pretty hard for a 70-pounder to practice with a 340-pounder, right? But on the high school team, we had people that could wrestle with them, those kind of folks. So that's why I started combining them together.
Junior high wrestling was too small and had varying weight. He's not coaching for the money, and his worst memory as a coach is...
kids quitting. Every year we have people quit, as you know, and I know the value that students can derive from any sport, and quitting because something's difficult tends to become a habit with people. And then they get to adult life and they got a job that's a little difficult, a boss that's a little tough, and what do? They quit. And they go through their lives being quitters. And I've seen, there's examples in this town of people who gave wrestling a shot. I won't say a fair shot, but they came out, they tried it, and they quit. And maybe they do that for a couple, 3 years in a row. They don't finish things. And so they never get over that hump of, you're going to have a lot of experiences in life that aren't pleasant. Getting thumped on in practice is pretty easy compared to some of the experiences you'll have in life. You know, where you get knocked down by whatever, and you got to get back up on your feet and go again. You know, so that's the part that really it has always bothered me. I once had a defending state champion quit. He had gone through the previous year undefeated. And then his senior year, he got into drugs and alcohol and wild women. And he went from being the best athlete in the school, because he played every sport, to quitting wrestling and never getting to play on the varsity basketball team that he'd started on it since his sophomore year. He stayed on the team, but he was at the far end of the bench. He never got to play because of what he did to himself, you know. And watching something like that's pretty hard to do, you know, as a coach that cares about their athletes.
I'd like to thank Coach Dudley Homovic for taking time out of his day to let me interview him for my school assignment. Thanks, Coach.